Hello friends, welcome to the Handyman Devlog. Hope you're having a good 2021 so far. This devlog is going to primarily be talking about Day 7 and spoilers therein. But first I'm going to start by talking a little bit about some of the stuff that will be part of the upcoming patch. Compared to other days, Day 7 launched with relatively few bugs, so I'm not in a huge hurry to get a patch out, but here are a couple of things that I am working on currently that will be part of the upcoming patch. First of all, there is now going to be a difficulty setting for the minigames. So there's 3 different difficulty settings. There's essentially easy, normal, and difficult. These settings apply to all 3 of the sex minigames, and if there's any other sex games in the future, they will apply to those as well. Regardless of what difficulty setting you choose, each of the games will start out the same. The difference is going to be in how the games ramp up in difficulty. So the harder you have it, the more extreme it will ramp up. The last thing I did before launching Day 7 was I changed the way that the audio was loading into the game. Previously the audio all loaded in at once when you started up the game, but I changed it so that the audio now loads in as needed, which will allow for better memory usage, and I have now done the same thing with the sex animations. So again, previously all of the animations were loaded in at the start of a day, but now the animations for the sex scenes are separated out and only loaded in when they are needed and then unloaded once the scene ends. There are a couple little bug fixes and a couple of other things that may work their way into the upcoming patch, but the last thing I will definitely say about the patch is there will be a few new cosmetics. Oki and Dana will each have new makeup, and Brooke will have a new hairstyle in the upcoming patch. And to briefly go over Day 8 before I get into Day 7 and spoilers in Day 7. Day 8 is just underway, so expect for it to take quite a while. This is going to be one of the more involved days to build, and I know where I want to go with most of the stuff, but figuring out the puzzles and making all of that happen is going to take quite a while, I expect. I'm not even going to try and put a number on how far into it I am, but I will tell you this: it will include Tanya, it will include Oki, Brooke, and Chantel. Alright, so I'm about to get into Day 7 and spoilers surrounding it, so if you want to find all the stuff on your own, this is probably the time to back out of this video. Alright, so where do I begin? So I guess I start working on a day with a basic idea of who I want to be involved in the day. And when I say involved, I mean who the sexual encounters are going to involve. So first and foremost, I knew I wanted to do a scene with Dana in the shower. There's also a potential event that you could have in Day 5 called Made a Promise, revolving around Carly, so I wanted to try and work that into the day as well. So those 2 things are basically my starting point. But right away I have 2 kind of complications to my plan. The first has to do with kind of the structure of how these sex scenes play out. The player makes an action which is in the vicinity of one of the girls. Now that action might be a passive action, such as just sitting down or getting iced, but they are making some sort of interaction, and that sparks a arousal scene. The arousal scenes are always a PG-13 interaction, which at the end of it the player has to actively make a decision to progress beyond that point. So that's the point at which the player can get busted by usually Tanya, but any character who isn't involved in the interaction. And this becomes a problem because it's hard to think of a reason for Grant to be in the shower for an arousal scene that is PG-13. My original thought way back when I was kind of just thinking ahead and not really thinking too hard about it was that Grant would be actually stepping into the shower to install the shower head. But then that creates a problem. Why is Dana in the shower if the shower isn't running? The other problem that I have is the Day 6 event, Grant Goes Exclusive. If you're not familiar with this event, it is basically that Grant and Chantel are now boyfriend and girlfriend. I'm trying to keep this game fairly lighthearted, and I don't plan on having cheating as being part of the game, so that does limit what Grant is able to do if you have that Day 6 event when you enter Day 7. The solution to the first problem is fairly straightforward, and honestly I wish I had thought of doing something like this earlier. but that is just to break up the arousal part of the scene and the actual sex scene into two separate pieces. So Dana starts on the couch and the arousal scene plays out there, and then upon completing that, and if you have installed the shower head, the scene then would play out in the large bathroom upstairs. Expect to see this happen more and more in the game because it really does free me up to do different things and not to have the situations be quite so contrived. My initial plan for this game was to always have the ability to have a hookup on every single day. I ended up deciding in this case to not have a hookup if you are exclusive with Chantel. Now, if you've played Day 7 with the Grant Calls exclusive event, you know that Chantel actually does show up on Day 7 and gives you a gift. I briefly considered having Chantel actually give you a hand job or something like that, but I ended up deciding against that because I felt like it was going to get too Chantel heavy in terms of the scenes that I was working on and that would be accessible to you guys. I do have some thoughts on how to mix things up, yet keep Grant faithful going forward, but for this day I just decided to give what I think is one of the better outfits to you if you do go down this path. Alright, so let's talk a little bit about Oki, her birdhouses, and the shower heads. My main concern with the puzzles was that I thought people were going to struggle finding that final shower head, and it turns out I was completely wrong. Everybody found the shower head with relative ease, but they couldn't find that damn wrench, which surprised me. The idea with the shower head in the birdhouse was supposed to be that Oki puts it in there as though it were an egg. She talks about putting an egg in a birdhouse to make it feel more homey, and that she had mistakenly put the shower head in there, again, thinking it was an egg. For a while, I considered having an additional puzzle that you had to figure out how to get the egg out of the birdhouse. I ended up abandoning that, A, because I wasn't sure how I was going to make that work, and B, because so much depended on that shower head. You couldn't actually initiate the scene with Dana without the shower head being installed, so it seemed like it was a little bit too much. So Oki herself is mostly keeping to herself on this day. She's working on her birdhouses. You can talk to her and have a little bit of interaction with her about different things, but for the most part she's going to keep to herself. The primary exception to that is if you enter the day with the event from Day 6. Maybe I shouldn't have said that. That event is triggered in Day 6 if you talk to Chantel or Brooke and let them know that you have read Oki's diary. So that comes around on Day 7, and Oki may have a trap planned for you. If Oki catches you reading her diary, she's going to confront you and, well, get in your personal space. This is not a sex scene, though I do think it's a fun scene. It may come with some consequences in the future. So as I mentioned before, I knew I wanted to have a scene with Carly that was related to the Made a Promise event from Day 5. I did later decide that I was going to make it available regardless of the Day 5 event, but that the Day 5 event would change some of the dialogue. The reason I did that is because the Day 5 event actually goes all the way back to Day 1 with other events, so I didn't want to have to make the players go all the way back to Day 1 to get to this event. And I'm generally pretty pleased with how the different components of the day kind of all come together and are interrelated. So the laundry task that Tanya is doing actually dates back to probably between Day 2 and Day 3 that I've just kind of had in my back pocket as something that I wanted her to be doing at some point, and it just happened to work really well with what I wanted Carly to do on this particular day. So as you know, Carly is working on a mural in the big bathroom, and as the conversation goes on and talking between Carly and Tanya, Carly gets the idea to go down by the washing machine and for you to eat her out while she's on the washing machine. So this actually serves as a solution to one puzzle, but then generates a second puzzle. So on the one hand, you get Carly out of the big bathroom, which frees it up for Dana, but then you have a secondary puzzle of now Tanya is going back and forth between the washing machine and her computer, and she will disrupt you and Carly if you try and engage with that scene. Which brings us to the newest inclusion on the computers, which is Faceplace. Obviously, from a mechanic standpoint, Faceplace is very similar to the email, but it gives me another place I can either drop clues or, in this case, a solution to one of the puzzles. If you check Faceplace on day 7, you'll see that students over at the rival school Callowell are talking mad shit about the chess team, and Tanya is going to take great offense to that if she finds out. That will keep her occupied for quite a while, which allows you to spend some time with Carly. As I said, you do have the option to leave Carly down by the washing machine and free up the upstairs bathroom for a scene with Dana. But you do have another way of keeping Carly out of the big bathroom, and it involves what has become my favorite object within the game. It's not just that he's taken a dump, it's that he's so proud of his dump that really brings joy to my heart. And yes, that is Felix the cat, but let's just keep that between you and me. And last but not least, we have the introduction of our newest dorm mate, Sonam. While Sonam does not figure prominently in the puzzles on this day, you do get to know her a little bit, and you have a little bit of variation on what the conversations will be based on some of the interactions you had on previous days. I think that should just about do it. We covered all the main bits, didn't get into all the nooks and crannies, or why you definitely should not have put the cat litter into the paint. I mean, what were you thinking? But at any rate, I think we'll call it a devlog, and we'll catch you guys on the next one.